Robert Kesakos is your usual suspects. The blockbuster weekend gets underway this Friday for match the 7th of the Premier League, and we will be digesting that and much more in today's episode of this morning live broadcast. It's 4 minutes to the top of the hour of 10 a.m. when we do come to you live. Every time I do come here late, just know. Anyway, it's been a bit of a struggle, if I'm being honest, this week. Not in the sense of availability, but for health reasons predominantly. So please indulge with me, bear with me, indulge me and bear with me as we get through this one episode for our preview of the weekend action that there is to come. But before we go into that, I thought we should start from home soil, where there's been a very, very significant development in as far as our local league football is concerned. For those of you that care to remember, I did tell you about the new changes that came up in the Uganda Premier League. The format was changed for reasons only best known to those that changed them. But for me, I could not put it anything beyond selfishness and a lack of respect for stakeholders. In my opinion, I think whatever the reasons that FUFA gave for the new changes and the speed at which they brought them was very suspect or suspicious. They could have done better in terms of stakeholder consultation. They could have listened more, but they wanted to show that they have the power, that they have the authority to do as they please, and they've gone ahead to do that. We've had rumors and allegations of intimidation when it comes to local club owners and administrators to cow them into the line, sort of toe the line. It's like one of those things when you get arrested and you get to the police station, and then cometh the hour, and then the police officer is like, "Toa viato, put off your shoes." It's a command. So basically, that's the route that the Federation of Ghana Football Associations has done. And part of my personal disappointments has been that the FUFA third vice president in charge of representing clubs, that's the Honorable Nachiwala, has done more to speak on behalf of the federation than on behalf of the clubs that she represents in that forum. Now, if that is not disappointing, I do not know what is. And so I find it very, very disturbing. If I'm being honest, I find it very, very disturbing in its own nature, the way they've set up, the way they've done these things. And I do not speak just for myself. The sentiments are out there. The fans, majority, have chosen to boycott. Now, yesterday, we had a very, very significant development, and that's why I wanted us to start here, is the former FUFA president and club and Vipers Sports Club director, that's Dr. Lawrence Mulindwa, did write to the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, the Uganda Premier League Board or Secretariat, and those that care, including the National Council for Sports, among others that were copied in that letter. It's a 2-page letter where he cites their objection to the new league format. They say they won't be honoring their fixtures. They were set to play against Chitara at, I think, tomorrow in a double fixture that was set to be played at Nambole Stadium with Vipers up against Chitara, and then the other game coming between KCCA Football Club and the Sports Club Villa, that's the record champions. Now, while NEC, that's NEC Football Club and Sports Club Villa were all in objection to the new league format, they sort of came around to playing it. They will participate, not because they want to, but because they have been forced to, in a way. In other words, it's one of those things. It's like it's more like when you command your kid to do something, to let's say mop the house. They don't want to do it, but they'll do it just because you force them, not because they feel inspired or motivated to do it. So that's sort of the case that is happened here. And Sports Club Villa, I to the best of my knowledge, will be honoring that fixture. KCCA, we know that they've been under enormous criticism from their fans, long life fans, from well-wishers, from the neutrals, from journalists. Apparently, for them, they just kowtowed to FUFA's pohu and fell in line like they're not even a stakeholder, like they do not have a voice. And yet for me, I feel, and because part of the challenge for whatever criticism we would want to level on these guys was that the clubs did not speak with one voice. That's what we wanted to say. But on the side, Villa, NEC, and Vipers, they mounted their own opposition. They gave their reasons. And by the way, to their defense, is that they're not entirely opposed to the format as is. But they themselves are taken back by the rush of things, by the rush of implementation. It's like when you go back to the political side of this country, when the Supreme Court ruled that civilians ought not to be charged in the court martials, and then the ruling government went to Parliament and amended the UPDF Act to find ways of making civilians be taken to the army courts. So, particularly in this case, they brought something new. You know when you go hunting, the hunters will tell you, when you see a dog, a hunting dog, run out of a thicket, running back to you, and perhaps even beyond you, they know one of two things, or one of three things. Either it is that it has seen an African rock python, or it has seen a lion or a leopard. Of course, the tigers are not mentioned because tigers are rare in Africa, if any. So, in that sort of sense, in other words, what has scared that dog is much more bigger than you actually think, or it's much bigger than they can afford to hunt, in that sort of sense. So, when back in the context of the Uganda Premier League affairs, the people that all clubs were opposed, at least according to multiple sources, all clubs were opposed to the new league format. Now, they had an engagement with the Federation of Uganda Football Association, and which was inconclusive. And then, because it was inconclusive, they agreed to meet on a further date to then conclude on the pending matters and sort of digest further, engage further on the matters that they needed to engage upon on. Now, the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, instead of using that time to reflect on their proposal, they instead used that time to go and intimidate, apparently or allegedly intimidate the club owners. And this again was voiced by the president of Sports Club Villa, Haj Umar Mandela. Sorry, is it Umar or Omar Mandela? Whatever the name is. So the head of the city, what is it called? The city group, sorry, the Mandela Group, actually, Mandela Group of companies. So the clubs came back to that follow-up meeting and they were all told in line. And they were at least honest enough to tell their peers in Vipers and Sports Club here that they had been intimidated by officials from the Federation, that they had been branded as opposition figures for being opposed to footballing ideas that had been brought to the table. And the question for Vipers and Sports Club here was, what was so wrong with the old league format that needed sort of a very, very quick change? Because like I said, in all support for Villa and Vipers at the time, who were still together in opposition, the question for them was, can't we hold on to these changes for another 2 or 3 seasons? Let's re-evaluate them. Let's sit on the round table and discuss them to the full length of them. Let's give our input. Can we have them tested in a lower tier division? Can we have them tested in the Women's Football League? And all that fell to deaf ears on the side of the federation, because at the helm of the Federation of Uganda Football Associations is Engineer Moses Magogo, who, to the best of my recollection, came into office around August 2013. And over time, he's grown into, for lack of a better word, of a dictator, saying it's either his way or no other way. It's either the highway or no other way with him. And it's very, very unfortunate, because football as a sport as is a game that has more than one stakeholder. Because as a component, the Uganda Federation of the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, I do not think they even form 20% of what football is in this country. I may not know the A to Z of this country, but for everywhere you have football, football without the fans is nothing. You're not playing for anyone. You're just playing it for your own fun, for your personal fun, without the fans. So the fans are a huge stakeholder in the game. But before you bring in the fans, you have these investors who are investing in the game, who are investing in their hard-earned money, because I do not know how many clubs break even, how many clubs make profit in the Uganda Premier League. If any, they are a handful, if not even less. You look at what, for example, Dr. Lawrence Mulinda has invested in Vipers, assigning the good players, including foreign players, bringing in foreign coaches, trying to dominate the Uganda Premier League, which he has done in all fairness for quite some time. Because I think in the last 6 years, they've won that title 4 times in the last 6 years, and I stand to be corrected on this one, because in between there, Villa have won it, and also Express. I think Express, that was it 2019 or thereabout, or 2021 thereabout. Keke Kiwanka had come, back to the helm of the club, and was well invested in the club matters. Hi LFC, how are you? Good to have you back. Then in between there, you had Sports Club Villa. I think that was last season, but one when they won it. So you look at all that, and it suffices to say that Vipers have dominated the league. Can't stay too long due to homework to be done. Okay, I wish you the best of luck, my friend, in that regard. So for somebody that invests that kind of money, they've gone to the continent. They are not yet where they want to be, but they want to continuously go there and improve themselves. And that is what they are doing, or they have been doing, or that's the goal, or that's the intention. And then suddenly you want to tell me he has no say? We've seen it over the years. And the FUFA president, he himself, knows how very expensive it is to sustain a football club in Uganda. At one point, if still not yet, was at the helm of Mutundwe Lions. I do not know what happened of Mutundwe Lions, or if they are still an active club. He is, I think, the owner of Kampala Queens, a team that plays in the FUFA Women's League. Then he knows one too well the struggles of Express with funding. He knows one too well that people like Obed, the proprietor of Sowana, how they were, they eased themselves back out of football. We know that Joel Aita, behind Black Powers, is it Black Powers from Arua? He knows one too well what people like Mujibu Kasule have gone through to sustain a club like Proline. Of course, he has the Proline Academy and things like that. He knows one too well about everything when it comes to how clubs struggle with financing in this. And on that very front, they've tried to do something about it as a federation. However, their way of supporting has come in a very, very disguised manner or in a blackmail manner. And bear with me on this one. First of all, out of the money that comes in as league sponsorship from the league's sponsors, that's StarTimes Uganda. The federation parts away with about 200 million shillings to do whatever they call as management, referees, and things like that. Now, they take money away from the club. And then they've come with a proposal that they are going to give clubs more money. They'll give you 80 million, basically for participating. And I've already said, you know, when you're poor, it's really, really hard to be swayed by money or to capitulate to somebody's demands just because you want the money. So for me, the question is, can't this new money that is being brought in football be given to those clubs in the old league format? The simple answer is yes, it can be done. So they want to give 80 million to clubs. I do not know whether it's a wholesome payment or they are going to dangle it out as a bait to say we will give you this money, then they give you 20 million, then the rest will come, and we know how it takes long. We know that a league winner who previously was supposed to get 60 million shillings, that money will take ages before it's paid, if even paid, So they brought new money, improved on the prize money for the eventual winner, which could rise to up to 100 million, which is still a drop in the bucket, in my opinion, but half a loaf is better than nothing. Of course, they've improved on the money that is given to relegated teams. In the previous format, they were giving 500,000 to the team that finishes bottom of the league, which is a mockery for me. Then two, I think that has improved to about 2.5 million shillings or maybe 3, depending. And of course, in addition to the 80 million shillings, you'd say that's something. But again, they've not clearly stated under the conditions upon which that 80 million shillings is dished out. I would want to believe that it should be stated that upon full registration and being licensed, then you'll be given the 80 million as part to help you in preparation for the new season. Or if it is for infrastructure development, should be stated as such. Perhaps you are seeking guidance on that as well. But the bottom line I want to say is, I'm looking for the right term to use. In Kola ya kasajja fuba, I do not know how to put it in English. The egos in football are not going to win for football. And I was thinking to myself, what would be the circumstance or scenario if players chose to boycott the league? What's the worst that could happen to them? Now, unfortunately for the players, it's their source of income. Even though sometimes it takes ages to come, it is their source of income, their source of livelihood. So it's not an easy sacrifice. Two, the other question I've had is where the other stakeholders. I know government by design is forbidden from interfering in football administrative matters. But as they're thinking, where's the Minister of Education and Sports? Where is the State Minister for Sports? Mr. Peter Ogwang, where are you? I was thinking, where is the National Council for Sport? Where is your contribution in all this as stakeholders, And looks like they've all gone mute. I've not heard anything from them, if they have said anything anyway. So you look at everything and it is shambolic. FUFA hid behind the idea of improving competitiveness, blah, 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 whatever nonsense they told themselves to justify their changes. I do not think it's going according to plan. The stadiums have been empty at the very least. Some of the fans, some of the footage I've seen, have not been to any of the grounds. So I speak from that angle. I've not been to any of the Uganda Premier League grounds in this new league format. In any case, even in the league format, I'd only been to a handful, but at least on those handful of times, when I went to the Filippo Omondi Stadium, I remember watching, I think, about 2 games there. One being between KCCA and Bright Stars, and there was quite a sizable crowd. Then the other was between KCCA and Vipers, and I think it was filled to capacity. That small, tiny Filippo Omondi Stadium. So there's only been a handful of supporters so far that could pass for, ball boys and other club employees. So, for example, if you have, a club, if let's say you had a club like KCCA or Vipers who have a fully fledged, media department, the physio, the number of fans that has been at some of those games is the equivalent of that. Now, also in the new proposed format, they did propose a revenue sharing model of the home team taking 85%, 5% goes to FUFA, 5% goes to Uganda Premier League Secretariat, and the other 5% goes to what? I need to confirm on that one. Let me see. FUFA. Yes, the other 5% goes to the opponent, the team that is being hosted. And guess what? And I'm thinking to myself, come on, FUFA. You can't give with one hand and take with another. You're already taking from these clubs through sponsorship money that comes into the league from the league sponsors. And then you also want on the gate collection. And then you're also telling them that on that modest gate collection, they should give something to the opposing team, to the visitors, that they should give some to the Uganda Premier League Secretariat. Maybe for the Uganda Premier League Secretariat to keep that running, I would sort of understand. But the other 2 entities, no. We're not in a knockout cup competition where we say, okay, you got the home advantage, let's do some revenue sharing. Because we are accustomed to the round robin. If you are able to attract crowds, then make your money from home. That's why clubs like Onduparaka, for the short time they were there, they were very successful in terms of they weren't really so limping when they still had the backing of their fans, because the fans attended games, however little they had to pay, they paid their dues and attended those games, at the Greenlight Stadium, So, anyways, I think in all this, it's football that loses. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see because we are going in for the international break. That's the World Cup qualifiers. Uganda will be in action, I think, in a double-headed fixture. I will be waiting to see whether fans will actually go to Nambole Stadium. And I do not know, the timing of this couldn't have been worse. We just came out of the African Nations Championship. There was that momentum starting to build. Domestic fans coming back, backing the Uganda Cranes. Subsequently, that culminated into them, watching the qualifiers, in the recently concluded fixtures in which they beat up against Somalia, and then the other was against I think against Mozambique, who they put, was it 4-0 or 3-0? So now, all this conundrum with the Uganda Premier League threatens the positives from all that. And it's all FUFA's doing. But it is what it is. I do not think Eagles will win. I think as a leader, there comes a time when you need to do self-reflection, and this should be a period for that, for India Moses Magogo. To say it's not about me, it's about football. Football should win at the end of the day, just like Dr. Rollins Mulindwa put it, that at the end of the day, they want football to win, not individuals, because individuals come and go, the sport remains. Because the sport in itself is a conveyor belt of individuals. people just pass through the channel. You come, you have your 15 years of a career in football as a player, you go, or 20 years, you go. Club presidents, officials, managers, they come and go. Club owners could be sort of semi-permanent. Tomorrow he can wake up and sell his club. Tomorrow they can wake up and it's new leadership, and things like that. So that's the nature of football. As is the nature of other things in life. Why do you think you own something? Tomorrow it's going to be owned by somebody else. Today, I may be the proud owner of this TV remote and the TV set that comes with it. But at the end of me, when my candle blows out, that TV set is going to be owned by somebody else, if it is still good enough to show something. Anyways, I will leave that at that. And, I switch sides to the English Premier League, where we head into match day 7, and that match day 7 does kick off tonight at 10 p.m. when Bournemouth take on Fulham. Then that game should be coming at 10 p.m. East African time, like I said. Bournemouth will be at home at the Vitality Stadium. We're talking about a Bournemouth side that have had a brilliant start to their new campaign. They are 6th on the Premier League log, I think, with about 11 points. Fulham are 11th on the Premier League log. In their last Premier League outing, Fulham were beaten up by Aston Villa by 3-1. But prior to that, they had beaten up against Brentford by 3-1. Equally, among their other games was a 1-1 draw to Manchester United. We know that they lost to Chelsea by 2-0 in that scandalous, poorly officiated game. We know that I think they managed to beat up against Leeds by 1-0. Was it? Then on Bournemouth, the other side, they shared the spoils with Leeds in a 2-2 draw. In fact, their last 2 games have been draws against Newcastle and against Leeds United. You rewind things further back than that, and they did beat up against Brighton by 2-1. They beat up against Tottenham Hotspur by 0-0, and also won against Wolverhampton Wanderers by 0-0. So they sort of had a bright start to the campaign. One brighter beyond my personal expectations, given the sort of a number of players, key critical players that they had lost in the transfer window. I thought they would sort of have a struggle to the start of the campaign, and yet that's not been the case. Then when you look at the meetings between these two sides, usually the case is that the home side tends to win. That's how it's been. If the last 5 fixtures are anything to go by, 8 meetings between the two sides, Bournemouth have won 4, Fulham have won 2, and they've been 2 draws. So you can see that while Bournemouth dominate the fixture, it's not an overall dominancy. Last season at the Vitality Stadium, they won that fixture by 0-0, while the earlier reverse fixture had ended in a 2-2 draw. When you go to last season, but one Fulham beat up against Bournemouth by 3-1 at Craven Cottage before having earlier on lost by 3-0 in at the Vitality Stadium. Then so things like that. Given how decently Bournemouth have had a start to their season and having that home advantage at the Vitality Stadium, I'm going for a 2-0 win for Bournemouth on the night against Fulham. Yes, Fulham, very, very good team, but we know that they've struggled with some injuries, especially in their forward lines. Raul Jimenez, who had scored that goal against Aston Villa, was withdrawn through injury. We know that Rodrigo Muniz, was out through injury in that very, very game. The likes of Samuel Chukwueze and Adama Traore did not have the kind of impact that you would have hoped for on that game. Harry Wilson, they did not have that sort of impact. But Sasa Lukic is one of those, brilliant players in that, Fulham midfield. On the other side, I think Andoni Iraola has managed things really, really well when it comes to to Bournemouth. Anton Semenyo, Evan Nelson, those are the danger men that you have to look to. David Brooks in that midfield, Alex Scott, Lewis Cook, Ryan Christie, Omar Castavenia, those kinds of player. In that defense, of course, Adrian Trafford at left back who replaced Milos Kakez. You look at Bafode Diakite in that defense. You look at players like Milo Sajevic, again, one of their defenders. So it's all good. Dijat Petrovic, I think, has had a good start in that Bournemouth goal, having joined them from Chelsea in a deal worth about £25 million. Anyways, and then on Saturday, action will take shape in the early kickoff. Leeds United will be up against Tottenham Hotspur. While at 5 p.m. we will have 2 games played. That's Arsenal versus West Ham, while Manchester United will be up against Sunderland at 5 p.m. And then later on at 7:30 p.m. Chelsea will be up against Liverpool. That's on Saturday alone. So Tottenham Hotspur, they had a brilliant start to the season, but their sort of form had slumped up a bit in the last couple of games. They've drawn the last 2 games against Brighton 2-2 and against Wolverhampton Wanderers in a 1-1 draw. In fact, they needed a late equalizer from Joao Paulinho to salvage a point from that game against Wolverhampton Wanderers, a team that did not beaten in the last 6 meetings, losing 4 and drawing 2 now. We know that they started off the season beating up against beating up against Burnley, then they beat up against Manchester City, they beat up against they lost to Bournemouth by 1-0 and beat up against West Ham United by 3-0. They are fourth on the Premier League globe, which is very, very decent compared to Leeds United, who are 12th. Leeds have had their struggles, including a 5-0 thumping at the hands of Arsenal, a goalless draw against Newcastle, a 1-0 loss, was it? Yeah, to Fulham, and then beating up against Wolverhampton Wanderers by 3-1. Then a 2-2 draw against Bournemouth. Between the Tottenham have been the dominant side in the last 5 fixtures. They've won 4 of the last 5, while Leeds have only won 1. You have to go back to May 2021 when they beat up against Tottenham Hotspur by 3-1. This Leeds side who are under the charges of Daniel Fakir, formerly at teams like Norwich City, But in the 2022-2023 campaign, Tottenham Hotspur beat up against Leeds at Carl Road by 4-1. Then they had won the earlier reverse fixture by 4-3. So we do expect my expectation will be for both teams to score, but I'm going for a Tottenham win. Usually early kickoffs are a bit tricky. They are often dodgy and tricky, but I'm going for a 2-1 victory for Tottenham Hotspur. That's what I'm going with. I think they lost to Bodo Glimt in the UEFA Champions League. I know they did not have a decent result. Let me find out. When did they play? Was it on Tuesday? Possibly Tuesday. Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah, they did not lose, but they were forced in a 2-0 draw against Bodo Glimt. So they've had a set of draws in there. Anyways, that's my prediction: a 2-1 victory for Tottenham Hotspur. I do not know. I don't know. I don't know if it's so much hope that I have in Thomas Frank in getting things right with Tottenham Hotspur, but based on what I've seen in the opening couple of games, you could see that he's made them more defensively solid. They weren't conceding one too many goals, although in the last couple of fixtures, as you've seen, they've conceded, I think, 5 goals in 3 games. 2-2 against Brighton, 2-2 against Bodo Glimt, and then 1-1 against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So you can see they've been conceding. Are they losing their edge defensively? It's bound to happen, but I want to give him the benefit of doubt. Sometimes he's tinkered that team, particularly in midfield. Today you have Pape Matsa, Lucas Bagville, and who else? And Rodrigo Bentancur. Then tomorrow you have Pepe Matsa drop. We know that James Madison is out through injury, so that hurts their creativity. Brian Johnson, Richarlison, and Muhammad Kudus have been mainstays in the absence of Dominic Calvert-Lewin to lead the Lions and things like that. But we'll wait and see. Then Arsenal will be up against West Ham United. A London derby. This one comes either a little too early for West Ham or for Arsenal. We know that West Ham have gone through a managerial change, having part ways with Graham Potter and brought in Nuno Espirito Santo. He so far managed them through one game, and that was a 1-1 draw over the weekend. A 1-1 draw over the weekend. So at least they managed to avoid defeat. That 1-1 draw came against Everton. I thought they would lose, if I'm being honest, but yeah, they lost to teams like Chelsea 5-1. They beat up against Nottingham Forest 3-0. They lost to Tottenham 3-0. They lost to Crystal Palace by 2-1. It's not been pretty. It's not been pretty. Arsenal on the other side have built themselves some bit of momentum ever since losing to Liverpool by 1-0 prior to the previous international break. They managed to beat up against Nottingham Forest 3-0, shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw with Manchester City, beaten up against Newcastle by 2-1. They had to leave it late, that winning goal coming in the 96th minute, while the equalizer had come around the 84th minute. You go to the UEFA Champions League, where they played 2 games since then, against Bilbao and against Olympiacos, winning both fixtures by a 2-0 margin. So they built themselves some bit of momentum. I know West Ham on paper have a very good team, but under Graham Potter, they were so prone to conceding. And I think, if anything, one of the things that Nuno Espirito Santo is looked to or needs to correct as soon as possible is how they defend. They need to be more solid, more conservative, and I have no doubt that he will get them going in that regard. In any case, their 1-1 draw against Everton should be evidence of that. We know that in that midfield, Thomas Tuchel, you have what's his name, Lucas Paqueta. Some of those players are capable. Gerard Bowen, I think, was the goal scorer of the weekend for that equalizer. I can't hurt any opponent. I do not know if they have an outright striker, West Ham United, really, because Mikel Antonio was let go. Yes, they do have Nicolas Füllkrug, the German international who they signed, was it from Freiburg, the previous campaign? Anyways, so I don't think it was from Freiburg. Was it from Dortmund? Nicolas Füllkrug? Whichever the case is. So then Aaron Wan-Bissaka, very good person defensively, but in the centre back, they've sort of struggled through. They've struggled through some of those games in terms of defending and how they concede. They just concede for fun sometimes. So Fernandez, this one they signed from was it Wolves? No, Southampton. Somerville, Magasa, Carl Walker-Peters, Kilman, Constantino Mavropanos, Alfonso Areola in goal. I mean, West Ham, by the way, West Ham beat up against Arsenal last season. For those of you that care to remember, at the Emirates Stadium by 1-0. That goal was scored by Gerard Bowen, and those are one of the games that Arsenal those are one of the mistakes that Arsenal will be looking to correct. You know, by the way, this is very surprising. West Ham have beaten up against Arsenal in their last 2 visits at the Emirates Stadium. Last season, they beat up against Arsenal by 1-0. When you go to last season, but one, they beat up against Arsenal by 2-0. And in all those seasons, Arsenal have been chasing the title. It was Mavropanos and Thomas Tuchel that scored in that game. Last season, it was Gerard Bowen, you know. So when you look at the last 5 meetings between the two sides, there's been one draw, a 2-2 draw at the London, excuse me, at the London Stadium back in April 2023, while Arsenal have been lethal in their visits to the London Stadium. Last season, they beat West Ham by 5-2, while when you went a season further back, they beat them by 6-0. I think including a brilliant strike from Declan Rice. Then there was a burst, I think, from Bukayo Saka on that occasion. So then last season, the goals one was a free kick by Emerson. Then the other was a goal by Aaron Wan-Bissaka for the consolations for West Ham United, while Leandro Trossard, Martin Odegaard, Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, and Gabriel Magalhaes were the goal scorers for Arsenal. So Arsenal, fresh from the UEFA Champions League, you could argue that maybe they will have some tired legs. We know that Gabriel Magalhaes suffered a knock in that game against Olympiacos, but the manager, that's Mikel Arteta, did say it wasn't too serious an issue. It was they took him off as a result of precaution because he had suffered a kick in the first half, so they brought on Christian Mosquera. But even if he were to be absent, Arsenal are not short of numbers in that defense. Christian Mosquera is available, so but nonetheless, bearing in mind that we are going for the international break, I expect Mikel Arteta to field his best team. And that's David Raya, Gabriel Magalhaes, William Saliba. If there's any change to that centre-back pairing, then it could be Magalhaes that paves the way for Christian Mosquera or Ricardo Carafiori to play in that centre-back role. And we have Miles Lewis-Kelly at left-back, but we do expect Carafiori left-back at return to action. He was a rested man in midweek. Julian Timber to return to right-back, came off the bench. Ben White started in that game against Olympiacos. In midfield, Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard. He's returned very, gave a man of the match kind of performance against Olympiacos. About 89 touches in the ball. Then to the sides, we expect Ebeleche Eze, Bukayo Saka, and Victor Gyökeres. That will be the expectation. If there's any change, we'll wait to see it. But I think this time around, Arsenal should return to winning ways at home against West Ham. They should. I expect them to win. Maybe by 3-1. That's the scoreline I'm going for Arsenal versus West Ham United. Then Manchester United up against Sunderland. Unfortunately, you never know what kind of Manchester United is going to show up on any given day. It could be one that is as shambolic as the one that turned up at Brentford, and they got beat by 3-1, even though Brentford should have had a red card in that game. But you never know the kind of Sunderland that is, Man United that is going to show up. Manchester United have only lost one game against Sunderland in the last 5 meetings. Manchester United, you can see, have taken the lion's share of all those games, but all these games are pre-COVID. 2015, 2016, 2017, so you can see. And a lot has changed. Sunderland do have themselves a couple of leaders in that squad, predominantly Granit Xhaka, who is the captain of the team. I think he's done well enough to motivate them. They managed to beat up against teams like West Ham the opening day, then lost to Burnley, beat up against Brentford, drew against Palace, drew against Aston Villa, and beat up against Nottingham Forest the previous weekend. Manchester United, they have lost. They've so far lost 3 games this season, drawn 1 and won 2. So they are 14th on the Premier League log, while Sunderland are 15th. And going into the international break, there's already expectation about the future of Ruben Amorim, as is to be expected, given the kind of results that they posted on board. But Manchester United, it's hard to analyze. You know, they'll assemble a good team. Altai Baindia, Matas Delit, Lenny Yoro, Luke Shaw, Patrick Dogu, Diego Dallo, Nosa Mazzarri. Casemiro should be able to return for. Does he return for this fixture? Yes, he does return alongside Bruno Fernandes, Matas Cunha, Brani Mbuemo, Benjamin Sesko. You know, that expectation is there. But will they beat up against Sunderland? I mean, they have to. But Sunderland will come into that fixture knowing that Old Trafford is no longer a fierce ground as it used to be, that they can go into a game like this and win, or at least get a result. In any case, teams have gone to Old Trafford and showed that you can't get a result there. Maybe particularly not this season, but from Arsenal, because Burnley lost there by 3-2. Then Chelsea lost there by 2-1. And the other 3 away trips, there've been 2 losses and 1 draw. So, but you know that you can go to Old Trafford and win. I'm sorry, not convinced that Manchester United, by the way. My gut feeling says it could be a draw. Then Chelsea versus Liverpool. Very, very big picture. Liverpool have not won at Stamford Bridge in the last 3 visits. They've been beaten once. They've drawn twice. Same way Chelsea have not won away to Anfield in a long while. So it's been that kind of fixture. But like I said, that victory for Chelsea last season shouldn't delude them into thinking that Liverpool will be a walkover, because that fixture particularly came in the aftermath of Liverpool's return from Dubai, where they had gone for early Premier League celebrations in Dubai. So then they returned from there and played against Chelsea, you know, having won the Premier League title, because they were champions in waiting. Anyways, so Chelsea without some very significant players. Levi Colwill, Liam Delap, Darius Sugo is a doubt. Cole Palmer is absent. Tosin Aderabio, Wesley Fofana, Andre Santos is a doubt. So you can see that on paper, all these players are starters for Chelsea. So that's bound to hurt them in that in that midfield. So when it comes to thinking of a probable lineup for Chelsea, of course, the expectation should be Robert Sanchez in goal. It should be Benoit Badiashile in that back line. You'd expect to have, excuse me, what did I just do? You'd expect to have Benoit Badiashile alongside maybe Richie James, and then Malo Gusto at left back, sorry, at right back, and Marco Cucurella at left back, because Trevor Chalobah has a red card that he suffered against Brighton. So then the midfield, you do expect, I would go for Moises Caicedo alongside Romeo Lavia and play Enzo Fernandez. I just need that double strong pivot against Liverpool. Then William Esteval, Pedro Neto, and Joao Pedro. That's what I would start with if I'm Liverpool, if I'm Chelsea. Then Liverpool, I mean, things are not clicked into place for Florian Wirtz. Hugo Ekitike does return after serving his suspension for the red card he received against Southampton in the EFL Cup. So I'm thinking Alson Ramsey-Becker is out through injury. He did suffer a hamstring injury, and the expectation is that he could be back after the November international break. Remember, after the October international break, there will be a November international break. Yes, it does suck, but it is what it is. That's the FIFA calendar. In fact, I've had reports that FIFA wants to match the October and November international breaks, so that it's only one in that period. Anyways, for Liverpool, Jogi Mamadashvili in goal, Milos Kakez at left back, of course Ibrahim Konate alongside Virgil van Dijk. Right back, I'll go with Jeremy Frimpong. I'll play Dominic Szoboszlai, Ryan Gravenberch, and McAllister in that midfield. I'd go with Hugo Tike, Mo Salah, and Cody Gakpo. That's the team that I would start with. For changes, then I look to, Florian Wirtz. I look to Alexander Isak. That's our setup, so that Szoboszlai provides a bit of defensive cover to Frimpong, but also it gives you that midfield strength. These are players that have played literally the entirety of last season together, so they know each other one too well. The chemistry is there. So yeah, to try and cause that Chelsea side problems. I know. Florian Wirtz, we should give him more time to acclimatize more to the Premier League. I think he will eventually find his footing. But let's not put too much pressure on him. Alexander Isak, we know he did not have preseason, so his fitness has been very, very wanting, and he's trying to get it back. But we will see. My prediction is I think this one goes into a 1-1 draw, or Liverpool win it 2-1, but I'll go for 1-1. Anyways, that's that. Then on Super Sunday, do not forget there will be more action to come your way. Aston Villa will be up against Burnley. Everton will play Crystal Palace. Newcastle will be up against Nottingham Forest. Wolverhampton Wanderers will play Brighton. While at 6:30 p.m., Brentford will be up against Manchester City. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. Allow me to wish you a wonderful Friday and a blessed weekend ahead. Thank you so much, LFC, for chipping in, and every single one of you that managed to catch the podcast. Bye-bye for now, and stay blessed.